Power is a chain, invisible, yet it binds more tightly than iron. Most who rise to command believe they hold it, yet they are led by currents they do not perceive. They are puppets, dancing on strings pulled by fear, ambition, and the whisper of those who understand the rules of the game better than they do. To lead is not to be adored. It is to endure the cold calculus of human nature, to navigate the shadows where loyalty is currency and betrayal is inevitable. Those who mistake virtue for strength will find themselves trampled by those who understand the mechanics of survival. Fear is a language few wish to speak aloud, yet it is the instrument that guides decisions in every court, every office, every council. Men and women who rise without mastery of fear are consumed by it. They make concessions not out of principle, but out of terror that their weakness will be exposed. The world does not reward purity of heart. It rewards the one who knows when to strike, when to yield, when to cloak intent in the guise of friendship. A leader who cannot see the undercurrent of fear is already lost, a leaf carried helplessly by the river of circumstance. Loyalty is another illusion. It is not a sacred vow. It is a transaction, a temporary alignment of interest. Those who demand it without understanding its fragility are doomed. Allies may bow, but their allegiance is contingent on the wind of fortune. They will stay while the wind is favorable, and they will vanish when the storm turns against them. To command is to anticipate this flight, to know that the hand that appears to embrace may also be the one that drives the knife. Betrayal is the constant companion of ambition. It is not the exception, it is the rule. Leaders who fail to anticipate treachery are architects of their own ruin. One cannot eradicate betrayal, but one can understand its pattern, its inevitability, its opportunity. Every betrayal is a mirror reflecting weakness, every act of deception, a lesson in the truth of human desire. The prudent leader does not seek to punish betrayal alone. He uses it as a tool, a prism through which the machinery of power is revealed. Control is an illusion purchased at great cost. The more a leader grasps for it, the more he discovers it slips through his fingers. Authority is maintained not through moral superiority, but through perception, through the careful choreography of appearances. The world judges by what is seen, by what can be measured, not by what is intended. Those who understand this dance manipulate not just actions, but expectations, the silent currents of opinion that move entire populations without a word being spoken. Ambition is both the fuel and the poison of leadership. It drives men to heights, yet blinds them to the traps below. Ambition untethered from insight becomes a spectacle of destruction, a mirror of the very tyranny it seeks to avoid. The one who masters ambition tempers it with strategy, observing the battlefield of influence before stepping onto it, knowing that every advance invites resistance, every gain provokes envy. Power is never seized once. It must be maintained endlessly, a vigilant watch over shifting alliances and hidden enmities. The machinery of leadership is cold, precise, and unforgiving. It does not reward sentiment, it does not bend for conscience. Those who mistake it for a vessel of justice are deceived by its elegance. Every decision has consequence. Every choice reverberates beyond the immediate moment. The modern state is a theater, and the leader is both actor and playwright, scripting appearances even while hiding the hands that move the stage. To fail in this theater is to vanish, replaced by another who understands the silent art of manipulation and survival. To break free from being a puppet is to confront the architecture of power without illusion. It is to study fear and loyalty, to anticipate betrayal, to wield ambition with clarity rather than desire. It is to see beyond appearances, to act not as the world wishes, but as circumstance demands. Freedom in leadership is not rebellion against the system, it is mastery within it. The one who moves with insight controls not only action, but the perception of action, the currents that guide the decisions of others, the invisible strings that bind the many. The path is solitary. The wise leader walks alone through corridors of compromise and chambers of intrigue. Friends and advisors are instruments, not extensions of virtue. Each must be measured, each must be understood, each must be managed. Authority is not a cloak to wear, it is a weight to bear, a constant calculation of risk, opportunity, and the inexorable laws of human desire. To lead without this understanding is to surrender to forces larger, colder, and far more cunning than oneself. Those who are puppets believe in their own omnipotence, blinded by the applause of the ignorant and the flattery of the opportunist. They mistake reaction for loyalty, compliance for support, fear for respect. And in their blindness, they are consumed, their reign a fleeting echo in the annals of power. To break free is to recognize that the strings are not removed, they are understood, navigated, and sometimes used to one's advantage. Mastery comes not from denying the nature of power, but from embracing it with clarity, detachment, and relentless observation. The world rewards those who see it as it is, not as it ought to be. The landscape of leadership is carved from the bones of the ambitious, painted with the blood of the deceived, and navigated by the careful mind that measures every move, every gesture, every word. To lead is to wield necessity like a blade, to strike when hesitation would destroy, to retreat when pride would ruin. Survival is not moral, it is strategic, and only those who understand this can ever hope to move freely in the corridors of influence. Puppets follow, masters move. Puppets react, masters anticipate. Puppets are bound by the strings of circumstance. Masters see the strings, feel them, and guide them with deliberate hand. To break free is not to reject the world of influence, but to inhabit it fully, to acknowledge the cold machinery that drives human action, and to navigate it with unwavering focus. The one who achieves this does not act for applause, for honor, or for moral approbation. He acts because the world demands it, and he survives because he understands the anatomy of power better than those who dance blindly before him. Every moment, every choice, every interaction is a lesson. The court, the council, the boardroom, the street, all are stages where loyalty and fear, ambition and betrayal collide. To ignore these lessons is to remain a puppet, dangling above forces that care nothing for intention. To embrace them is to command, not blindly, not cruelly, but with the precision born of understanding. There is no glory in leadership without this comprehension, no freedom without the recognition of the strings, no mastery without the unflinching gaze at the machinery that governs human behavior. Those who would lead must ask themselves not whether they are virtuous, but whether they are aware, not whether they are loved, but whether they are understood, not whether they act rightly in the eyes of conscience, but whether they navigate the currents that move men and manipulate the forces that determine outcomes. To break free is to see without illusion, to act without hesitation, and to survive in a world that rewards the cunning, the strategic, and the patient. The puppet fears the cut of the unseen hand. The master embraces it, uses it, transforms it. The chains of circumstance are real, but the chains of perception are negotiable. To lead is to negotiate them with clarity, precision, and relentless vigilance. Freedom is found not in the denial of the game, but in the mastery of its rules, in the cold calculation of necessity, in the careful orchestration of fear, loyalty, betrayal, and ambition. Those who understand this step into leadership with eyes wide open, their movements deliberate, their gaze unflinching. They see the theater of appearances, the machinery of control, the undercurrents of human desire. They act not from sentiment, not from hope, but from the careful observation of reality, and in doing so, they escape the strings that bind the unwary. To be free is not to reject power, it is to comprehend it, to wield it, and to endure it with unwavering resolve. Power is a chain, yes, but one can walk it, one can command it, one can use it. To lead without understanding it is to be a puppet. To see it, to anticipate it, to embrace it with intellect and discipline is to break free. This is the lesson hidden from most, that freedom is not the absence of constraint, but the mastery of the forces that would bind you. The leader who grasps this moves unshaken, unafraid, and unstoppable, and in that mastery, the puppet becomes the master. Every choice is a mirror, reflecting not only who you are, but who you allow the world to believe you are. Appearances matter more than truths, for the eye judges faster than the mind, and the tongue responds before conscience intervenes. Leaders who ignore this are blind architects of their own downfall, constructing castles on sand, only to watch them collapse beneath the weight of naive expectations. To navigate power is to learn the rhythm of perception, to bend reality to the shape of influence, and to understand that men are swayed less by what is just than by what seems inevitable. Every gesture, every word, every silence carries weight far beyond the immediate moment, rippling through networks of ambition and fear, shaping destinies in ways subtle and irretrievable. The court is a battlefield, though few recognize it as such. Allies are fronts, rivals are traps, and every gathering is a war in miniature, where decisions are made in whispers, not proclamations. To survive is to read between the lines, to measure intent in glances, to detect the tremor of desire or the shadow of envy before it strikes. It is not cruelty to anticipate treachery, it is clarity. Those who hesitate are devoured, those who act without comprehension are burned. The mastery of leadership demands the observation of human nature in its rawest form, untempered by sentiment or illusion, and the courage to act decisively upon what is seen. Ambition is an engine fueled by both desire and necessity. Without it, action stagnates, influence withers, and the world moves past the idle. But ambition unmoored from strategy is a storm that devours its own architects. The prudent leader channels desire into calculated movement, striking where opportunity aligns with advantage, retreating where exposure threatens ruin. Every ascent invites scrutiny, every gain provokes envy. To maintain dominion is to maintain vigilance, to anticipate envy as a constant companion, and to wield power not as a gift, but as an obligation tempered by intelligence and foresight. Fear and respect are currencies more enduring than love. They are fragile, yet they dictate compliance with more certainty than affection ever could. Those who mistake affection for loyalty will find themselves abandoned at the first sign of turbulence. Fear must be measured, applied subtly, never to the point of rebellion, but enough to ensure that boundaries are understood. Respect must be cultivated through demonstration of capability, not pretense. For the world judges competence before character, and the one who appears incapable invites subversion, no matter the purity of intent. The machinery of influence is relentless. It does not forgive error, nor does it reward hesitation. Decisions must be made swiftly, yet with the precision of one who sees the web in its entirety. Every action triggers consequence. Every inaction invites encroachment. Allies will test limits, rivals will probe weakness, and the public will perceive only the surface, never the intricate calculus beneath. To lead is to act with a mind that accounts for the invisible forces, the unspoken ambitions, the latent resentments that swirl like currents beneath calm waters. Mastery lies in navigating these currents without being swept away, in steering the vessel of authority with both caution and resolve. Betrayal is inevitable, yet it is also instructive. It reveals the hidden architecture of influence, the alignment of interest that underpins alliances, the fragility of loyalty. The wise leader anticipates it, understands it, and integrates it into strategy. Punishment is a tool, not vengeance. Exposure is leverage, not cruelty. To survive is to perceive the pattern before the act occurs, to measure intent against opportunity, to recognize that those who betray are not monsters, but instruments of the underlying mechanics of power. Control is never absolute. Those who believe it is are destined for disillusionment. Influence is maintained not by domination alone, but by anticipation, perception, and manipulation of the environment in which decisions are made. The leader shapes context, frames dialogue, orchestrates perception, and guides expectation. To fail in these subtle arts is to yield command without ever being confronted, to allow the machinery of human ambition to move unchecked, and to become a puppet in the theater, one assumed, one controlled. Solitude is the companion of comprehension. Decisions are rarely applauded, and understanding is often isolating. The leader walks alone through corridors of intrigue, through the labyrinth of alliances, through the fog of competing desires. Advisors offer counsel, yet each word is colored by interest, each gesture calibrated by ambition. Friends are temporary instruments. Even affection is contingent on circumstance. To act decisively requires detachment, the ability to observe without interference, to measure without bias, and to strike with clarity born of rigorous calculation. The masses are actors in a play whose script they do not comprehend. Their allegiance is fleeting, their perception malleable, their understanding superficial. To influence them is to shape the narrative, to control the rhythm of information, to orchestrate appearances that resonate with instinct rather than intellect. The leader must act as both composer and conductor, guiding the performance without exposing the mechanics, ensuring that every movement aligns with strategic intent and that the audience, though unaware, advances the purpose of the stage. Those who rise without awareness of these dynamics are doomed to the patterns of history, repeated endlessly, the virtuous crushed by ambition, the naive overrun by cunning, the well-intentioned ensnared by perception. Freedom in leadership is not the absence of constraint. It is the mastery of constraint, the ability to operate within the architecture of influence without being bound by it. The chains are real, yet comprehension bends them. Perception is manipulable, yet must be accounted for. Human desire is chaotic, yet predictable in its fundamental patterns. Every maneuver, every negotiation, every silent calculation is a confrontation with reality itself. To lead is to acknowledge the inexorable architecture of influence, to act within it without delusion, to embrace necessity without remorse. The one who sees clearly navigates treachery before it strikes, channels fear into order, shapes loyalty into utility, and wields ambition with precision. To break free from the strings of manipulation is to become the observer and the instrument, the strategist and the actor, mastering both the surface and the undercurrent of the world in which power is exercised. Those who cling to morality as a shield in the arena of leadership find it brittle, easily shattered by circumstance. Principles are instruments, not absolutes. Ethics are calculated, not preached. The world measures results, not intentions. It rewards clarity of action, not purity of heart. To survive, to command, to transcend the role of puppet, one must act with deliberate awareness, employing virtue and vice alike as tools within the architecture of necessity. The one who hesitates for moral clarity risks becoming a casualty. The one who acts with detached precision ensures survival, influence, and legacy. The theater of power is endless. Applause is ephemeral, loyalty conditional, threats constant. To master it is to see without illusion, to act without hesitation, and to endure without flinching. Every interaction is a test, every alliance a potential fracture, every silence a calculation. To break free is to comprehend these patterns, to anticipate them, and to manipulate them with skill equal to the forces arrayed against one. Freedom is not the absence of strings, it is the command over them, the ability to navigate, redirect, and when necessary, sever them without the world perceiving the hand that guides. Puppets fear the unknown, masters study it. Puppets react, masters anticipate. Puppets follow currents, masters chart them. To lead is to understand that visibility is a weapon, perception a shield, and action a calculated rhythm in a symphony of ambition, fear, loyalty, and betrayal. Those who grasp this transcend the constraints that ensnare the unwary, and in their comprehension, the world bends subtly to their will, not through brute force, but through mastery of the invisible forces that govern human behavior. Every decision is a battlefield, every alliance a terrain to be mapped, every word a projectile. The observant leader perceives the subtle shifts of intent, the tremor of envy, the glint of opportunism, and the quiet machinations that precede upheaval. To act without this awareness is to stumble blindly into traps set by those who understand the mechanics of influence, to surrender autonomy to circumstance, to exchange mastery for survival. The one who perceives first, calculates fastest, and acts with precision is not merely a participant. He is the architect of outcomes, the unseen hand that guides, the master of the theater that would otherwise consume him. Leadership is the study of inevitability. Patterns repeat, desires persist, ambitions collide. Those who see the patterns can navigate them, those who do not are swept aside. Freedom is found in the recognition of these truths, in the relentless observation of cause and effect, in the unwavering attention to the subtle interplay of human motives. To break free from the puppet's fate is to accept the machinery of power as it is, not as one wishes it to be, and to operate within it with intellect, discipline, and an unflinching will. The chain of influence is never broken, only understood, navigated, and occasionally redirected. Fear, loyalty, ambition, betrayal, they are the strands that compose it, and mastery is the ability to measure, anticipate, and manipulate each with clarity. The leader who grasps this moves freely where others are constrained, commands respect without reliance on affection, and secures outcomes without reliance on chance. To survive, to influence, to rise above the strings, one must embrace the cold, calculating truth of human nature and act with precision as the world observes, but does not perceive the depth of strategy behind each movement. Power is neither bestowed nor inherited. It is seized, maintained, and constantly reaffirmed through action and perception. The world does not grant mercy, nor does it wait for understanding. Every moment a leader hesitates, an opportunity passes, an advantage erodes, and the currents of influence shift imperceptibly yet inexorably. To navigate this is to become attuned to the silent language of human intent, the hidden levers of ambition, the unseen friction of envy and desire. Only by perceiving the invisible architecture of influence can one act with clarity, transforming potential threats into instruments and turning chaos into ordered advantage. Every alliance carries within it the seeds of tension. Friends are temporary shelters, not permanent fortresses. Loyalty is measured less by sentiment than by circumstance, and betrayal is never a mystery, it is a pattern, discernible to those who study intent and opportunity with vigilance. The prudent leader anticipates these fractures, not to dwell in paranoia, but to integrate foresight into strategy. Punishment is wielded not as vengeance, but as calibration. Reward is extended not as generosity, but as reinforcement. To lead is to choreograph human behavior, guiding it subtly toward objectives that preserve dominion and strengthen resilience. The surface is deceptive. Those who operate only on what is visible are blind to the mechanisms that dictate action. Influence is generated below perception, in the currents of expectation, fear, hope, and desire. Words are vessels, gestures are instruments, appearances are the medium through which reality is manipulated. To command is to act where others cannot see, to shape outcomes through perception as much as through force, and to maintain control not by brute power, but by mastery of the invisible rules that govern human interaction. Fear and ambition are inexhaustible engines. The prudent leader converts fear into structure and ambition into direction. Those who rely solely on admiration are vulnerable. Those who manipulate instinct and perception endure. Human nature is consistent in its volatility. Men desire advancement, resist constraint, covet advantage, and exploit opportunity. The one who studies these tendencies and aligns action accordingly transforms uncertainty into predictability and chaos into manageable systems. The world rewards decisiveness more than morality, perception more than intention, and mastery more than virtue. To act without consideration of consequence is folly. To act without awareness of perception is vulnerability. The leader who survives is one who balances action and anticipation, assertiveness and calculation, visibility and concealment. The true exercise of power is not in the display of might, but in the orchestration of circumstance, in the calibration of human behavior, and in the navigation of forces that, if ignored, would subvert authority before the first order is given. Isolation sharpens insight. Advisors, allies, and confidants are filtered through the lens of self-interest. Even affection is contingent. Even loyalty is provisional. The leader walks a solitary path, observing without attachment, calculating without distraction, acting without remorse. Every misstep is instructive, every subtle movement is significant, and every interaction is a node in a vast web of influence and consequence. Mastery is not born of company, but of comprehension, not of approval, but of understanding, and not of comfort, but of vigilance. Control is an illusion for those who do not perceive the underlying mechanics. It is maintained not through dominance alone, but through anticipation, manipulation, and the subtle guidance of perception. To fail in this is to be acted upon rather than to act, to become a puppet of circumstance rather than the architect of outcomes. Every conversation, every silence, every gesture is a vector through which influence flows. The adept leader measures, directs, and integrates these vectors into coherent strategy, converting human complexity into navigable patterns that preserve authority and opportunity. Betrayal illuminates truth. It reveals the alignment of desire, the weight of ambition, and the fragility of loyalty. Anticipation is not paranoia, it is clarity. To survive is to recognize that treachery is a natural manifestation of the forces that govern human behavior, to integrate awareness of these forces into action, and to employ response as strategy rather than as reaction. Punishment, exposure, and leverage are instruments, calibrated to reshape behavior and preserve dominion without unnecessary loss. The masses perceive surface, not structure. Their allegiance is conditional, their understanding superficial, their reactions governed by instinct more than reason. Influence over them is achieved through orchestration of perception, alignment of expectation, and management of instinct. The leader becomes both conductor and composer, guiding outcomes subtly, ensuring the theater of appearances advances strategic purpose, and preserving authority by shaping the context in which action is interpreted. Virtue is tactical, not absolute. Moral rigidity is a liability. Ethical principles are tools within the framework of necessity. Results are observed, intentions are interpreted, and outcomes are judged against practical consequence rather than sentiment. To hesitate for purity is to invite subversion. To act with disciplined awareness, employing both principle and expedience, is to secure continuity, control, and influence. Mastery lies in understanding when morality serves strategy and when it must yield to necessity. Every interaction is a test, every silence a measure, every gesture a calculated variable. Leadership is a battlefield of perception, ambition, and instinct. Observation precedes action. Comprehension precedes decision. Strategy precedes engagement. To break free from the strings that bind is not to escape consequence, but to command it, to shape circumstance, to manipulate perception, and to operate with deliberate precision within the architecture of influence that governs all human action. Puppets are reactive, masters are proactive. Puppets follow currents, masters chart them, puppets respond, masters anticipate. Freedom in leadership is not the absence of constraint, but the command over it. It is the capacity to perceive patterns, to anticipate action, to convert uncertainty into advantage, and to wield influence where others are blind. To survive, to endure, and to rise above the machinery of manipulation is to embrace clarity, calculation, and the unflinching examination of human behavior as it is, not as one wishes it to be. The theater of power is relentless, its actors volatile, its script unwritten yet inevitable. To navigate it requires comprehension of the subtle interplay between fear, ambition, loyalty, and betrayal. Every decision, every word, every silence shapes outcomes far beyond the immediate. The astute leader internalizes these forces, integrates their patterns, and operates with a discipline that transforms potential vulnerability into structured advantage. Mastery is measured not in applause, but in control, not in affection, but in enduring influence, not in intention, but in realized consequence. Alliance is temporary, opportunity fleeting, perception malleable. To lead is to anticipate fracture, to calibrate influence, and to maneuver within the invisible channels that direct behavior and expectation. The strings that bind are many, yet visible to those who observe with discipline, and masterable to those who act with intelligence and resolve. The leader is both participant and orchestrator, both actor and director, wielding power with subtlety as inexorable as it is imperceptible. The exercise of authority is an art of anticipation. Forces move unseen, motives align in shadow, desires collide beyond observation. To act blindly is to fall into traps, to yield autonomy to circumstance, to exchange freedom for survival. Comprehension grants the capacity to convert chaos into opportunity, to transform instability into structured progression, and to ensure that influence is maintained even as dynamics shift. Freedom is found not in ignorance, but in knowledge, not in reaction, but in deliberate engagement with the inexorable architecture of human behavior. The leader's eye sees beneath the surface, measuring intent, opportunity, and alignment with precision. Each action is a lever, each word a vector, each gesture a calculated instrument. To navigate power is to observe, calculate, and act with the awareness that nothing occurs in isolation. The machinery of influence is complex, yet predictable when approached with disciplined observation, rigorous analysis, and unflinching willingness to act. Survival and mastery are born of this clarity. Every decision carries consequence, every silence carries weight, every action triggers ripple across the network of ambition, envy, and desire. Hesitation invites encroachment, ignorance invites subversion, and naivety invites ruin. To lead is to perceive these patterns, to anticipate outcomes, to orchestrate influence, and to act with precision in a world where perception governs reality as much as force. The leader moves unseen, anticipates relentlessly, and acts decisively, transforming potential threats into instruments of authority and potential chaos into structured advantage. Power is never static. It is a river that must be navigated, dammed, diverted, and sometimes allowed to surge when beneficial. Those who attempt to command without comprehension are swept aside, their intentions crushed beneath the unyielding current of circumstance. Observation is the rudder, calculation the anchor, and decisive action the oar that propels one through the turbulent waters of influence. The landscape of authority is defined less by laws than by perception, less by sentiment than by expectation, and less by morality than by consequence. To survive, to endure, and to dominate requires understanding these imperatives and bending them to one's will without hesitation or remorse. Ambition is a contagion, spreading silently among those who perceive opportunity. Every subordinate, every peer, every rival is a node in a network of desire and self-interest. The leader who ignores this network is blind. The one who manipulates it becomes invisible yet omnipresent. Incentives, punishment, recognition, and fear are instruments, subtle or forceful, each deployed with deliberate intent to guide action towards strategic objectives. Influence is maintained not by proclamation, but by orchestration. The one who can predict and shape behavior holds dominion over outcomes before they are realized. Betrayal is inevitable. It is neither surprise nor failure. It is the natural consequence of human desire intersecting with opportunity. To be unprepared for treachery is to invite defeat. To anticipate it is to convert it into a tool of control. Exposure, retribution, and selective reward are not cruelty. They are mechanisms of calibration, ensuring that loyalty aligns with authority and that deviation is measured, contained, and exploited. Understanding betrayal allows a leader to wield it as an instrument of power, a mirror that reflects the hidden motives of those around him and illuminates the paths by which influence may be reinforced. Fear is a language spoken universally, understood instinctively. It is both shield and weapon, motivator and deterrent. To wield fear effectively is not to tyrannize indiscriminately, but to direct its flow where it produces order and obedience, where it reinforces strategic imperatives without consuming the instrument it seeks to control. Human instinct is predictable when studied. The mind recoils from uncertainty, the body reacts to threat, and the spirit bends to anticipation of consequence. The leader who comprehends these truths becomes both sculptor and observer, shaping action while remaining untouched by the currents he manipulates. The theater of appearance is as potent as reality. Men act upon perception more readily than upon truth. Influence is achieved as often by illusion as by action. Gestures, timing, and presentation are instruments through which authority is reinforced. Control is rarely imposed by force alone. It is cultivated through the orchestration of expectation, the subtle calibration of visibility, and the management of narrative. The effective leader understands that reality is experienced subjectively, that power is sustained through perception, and that the strings of influence extend far beyond what the eye can see. Isolation is the crucible of insight. To understand the machinery of power is to separate oneself from its entanglements, to observe without attachment, and to calculate without the distortion of personal bias. Advisors, confidants, and allies are instruments, not guarantors of fidelity. Affection is conditional, loyalty contingent, and intention often veiled. The solitary leader walks a path defined by comprehension rather than comfort, judgment rather than sentiment, and action rather than reaction. Clarity is found in detachment, mastery in observation, and authority in deliberate engagement with the dynamics of influence that govern all human interaction. Opportunity is transient, malleable, and often imperceptible until exploited. The prudent leader perceives it before it manifests, calculates its potential, and acts with precision to convert possibility into advantage. Inaction is a choice with consequence, hesitation a vulnerability, and miscalculation a catalyst for subversion. The one who understands timing, sequencing, and the alignment of human intent converts fleeting chance into lasting dominion, ensuring that the machinery of authority functions in alignment with strategic purpose rather than at the mercy of circumstance. Control is an architecture, invisible yet tangible to the discerning eye. It is maintained through anticipation, manipulation, and the strategic deployment of consequence. To fail is to become acted upon rather than actor, to cede agency to forces one might have commanded. Every interaction spoken, silent, observed, or hidden functions as a lever, transmitting influence across the network of ambition, fear, and desire. The leader who masters this architecture is never merely reactive. He is omnipresent, directing currents imperceptibly while maintaining the appearance of stability and inevitability. Loyalty is fragile, ambition relentless, and perception fleeting. To govern is to anticipate fracture, to reconcile self-interest with collective purpose, and to manipulate circumstance to reinforce authority. The strings that bind the political theater are numerous, yet visible to those who observe without distraction, comprehensible to those who calculate without sentiment, and manipulable to those who act without hesitation. Every alliance is temporary, every gesture significant, and every silence a vector of influence. Mastery is achieved by those who internalize these truths, transforming human volatility into ordered potential. Virtue, when divorced from strategy, is vulnerability. Moral principles are instruments, useful when they reinforce authority, dangerous when they constrain it. The world measures outcomes, not intentions, perception, not ethical alignment. To act solely upon principle is to invite subversion. To act with disciplined awareness, blending expedience and principle, is to secure continuity, fortify influence, and navigate the intricate lattice of power with unflinching calculation. The leader who understands this wields morality as a tool, not a constraint, shaping behavior while maintaining unbroken authority. Every decision propagates consequences unseen, Every silence communicates intent. Every gesture influences perception. Hesitation erodes advantage. Ignorance invites betrayal, and naivety surrenders autonomy. Leadership is the orchestration of these forces, the calibration of variables, and the deliberate engagement with patterns that govern behavior. Freedom is realized not through the absence of constraint, but through mastery of circumstance, the anticipation of human instinct, and the deliberate shaping of outcomes that others accept as inevitable. Puppets are defined by reaction, masters by anticipation. Puppets drift with the currents, masters chart them. Puppets respond, masters orchestrate. True command is not granted by title, by popularity, or by force alone. It is earned through comprehension, anticipation, and the disciplined exercise of influence. To break free from the strings that bind is to internalize the architecture of behavior, to operate with clarity and precision, and to act decisively where others hesitate, transforming potential subjugation into enduring authority. The machinery of power is inexorable. Its actors are motivated by desire, fear, and ambition. Its processes are governed by perception, expectation, and opportunity. The leader who engages without comprehension is undone. The one who observes without action is impotent. Mastery is found in the balance of observation and engagement, anticipation and execution, calculation and adaptation. Authority is sustained not by sentiment, not by display, but by the relentless orchestration of circumstance in alignment with strategic purpose. Influence flows in currents unseen, through channels imperceptible to the inattentive eye. Each conversation, each observation, each strategic omission is a lever, shaping action, reinforcing perception, and guiding outcomes. The effective leader converts these subtle movements into coherent strategy, transforming uncertainty into predictability, instability into control, and the volatility of human nature into instruments of enduring advantage. Betrayal, misperception, and ambition are constants, yet they can be harnessed. The leader who comprehends this converts threats into tools, subversion into reinforcement, and treachery into opportunity. Punishment, reward, and exposure are instruments of calibration, not cruelty. They realign desire, reinforce authority, and secure compliance without unnecessary destruction. Mastery arises from understanding patterns, anticipating outcomes, and acting decisively where others are constrained by hesitation or illusion. Ambition, like a dormant volcano, waits silently beneath the surface, its potential destructive power unseen until conditions align. Those who underestimate it are consumed. Those who channel it with precision harness its force. The leader must recognize the desires of others, not as abstract impulses, but as predictable vectors, currents that, once understood, can be directed to reinforce authority and consolidate control. Every whisper of aspiration, every flicker of resentment, every ambition unspoken is data, and mastery consists in interpreting these signals, adjusting strategies, and acting with resolute clarity before the tides of circumstance shift beyond influence. Trust is a commodity more valuable than gold, yet more fragile than glass. It is neither granted nor permanent. It is negotiated continuously, silently, and with awareness of its transience. To maintain trust is to anticipate betrayal, to measure loyalty, and to manipulate perception, ensuring that alignment of interest persists without overt coercion. Those who rely on trust without comprehension become servants to the very instruments meant to serve them. The astute leader deploys trust as both shield and weapon, cultivating it where it enhances control, retracting it where it threatens authority, and observing the fractures of faith as windows into the hidden motivations of allies and adversaries alike. Deception is not merely a tactic, it is the medium through which power is sustained. Truth, rigid and predictable, is a framework easily subverted by those who perceive it incompletely. Appearance, suggestion, and controlled disclosure are far more effective than blunt disclosure in guiding action and expectation. The leader who masters deception understands the precise balance between revelation and concealment, employing ambiguity as both camouflage and leverage. Reality bends under the weight of perception, and perception is shaped by those who act decisively, quietly, and with full cognizance of the consequences their manipulations will produce. Isolation sharpens the mind and tempers judgment. Surrounded by the clamor of ambition, flattery, and fear, many leaders become instruments of others' design rather than architects of their own destiny. To walk alone is to see clearly, to calculate precisely, and to act decisively without distortion. Solitude is not loneliness. It is the laboratory of insight, the forge in which understanding of human nature, political machinery, and strategic consequence is tempered into unassailable authority. Those who shun solitude are blind to the currents that shape influence. Those who embrace it move with clarity, patience, and inevitability. The exercise of power is inseparable from the management of perception. Authority is less about force than about the appearance of inevitability. Every decision, every gesture, every interaction carries significance beyond its immediate function. The observant leader discerns these nuances, employing them to reinforce influence, neutralize threats, and cultivate an environment where compliance appears voluntary and opposition appears irrational. Strategy is the architecture of consequence. Perception is the mortar that holds it together. Without mastery of both, authority is fragile, ephemeral, and ultimately impotent. Fear, wielded with precision, is a sculptor of behavior. It is neither tyranny nor cruelty when applied judiciously. It is a mechanism that aligns desire with expectation, incentivizes compliance, and deters deviation. Human instinct reacts predictably to threat and consequence. Understanding this enables the leader to guide action without overt intervention. Fear, when blended with reward, recognition, and opportunity, becomes a lattice of influence, subtle yet unyielding, directing the flow of ambition and desire toward ends that consolidate authority while minimizing resistance. Every relationship is a transaction, every interaction a negotiation. The leader who treats them otherwise is naive. Influence is earned, sustained, and reinforced through careful observation, calibrated engagement, and the strategic deployment of leverage. Allies are temporary instruments. Adversaries are potential assets if understood and manipulated correctly. The one who recognizes this does not seek friendship for comfort or security, but for alignment with purpose, control of variables, and the expansion of strategic advantage. Opportunity is ephemeral, its window narrow, its impact decisive. The leader who hesitates is overtaken. The one who acts decisively transforms possibility into permanence. Timing is as crucial as strategy, anticipation as vital as execution. Each circumstance carries within it potential advantage or catastrophe. Discernment and action are the differentiators between dominion and subjugation. To perceive opportunity without action is impotent. To act without comprehension is reckless. Mastery is found at the intersection of perception, calculation, and execution, where foresight converges with decisive intervention to shape outcomes before they crystallize. Loyalty is neither assumed nor guaranteed. It is observed, nurtured, and measured. Ambition, desire, and self-interest are constants that guide behavior, often in contradiction to expressed allegiance. The leader who ignores this reality is vulnerable to betrayal. The one who anticipates it converts potential fracture into reinforcement. Reward, recognition, and the selective application of consequence are instruments to calibrate loyalty, align action with authority, and transform the volatility of human ambition into mechanisms of predictable influence. Power is not ethical, it is functional. Principles are tools, morality a lever, virtue a potential vulnerability when detached from strategy. The world does not judge by intention but by outcome. It does not respond to fairness but to consequence. To act without awareness of this is to surrender agency. To wield it with comprehension is to navigate the complexities of influence with precision and inevitability. Authority is preserved by understanding the limits of principle, the predictability of human desire, and the inexorable logic of consequence. Control is the orchestration of variables, the management of perception, the anticipation of behavior, and the strategic deployment of action. It is invisible yet palpable, subtle yet unyielding, complex yet coherent. Every word spoken, every omission, every gesture carries weight. The leader who comprehends this operates in a space where influence is preordained, outcomes are guided, and the currents of ambition, fear, and desire flow under deliberate direction. Those who fail to perceive this remain actors in a theater of circumstance. Those who master it become directors of inevitability. Betrayal, fear, ambition, and perception are constants in the architecture of power. Mastery is found not in denial of these forces, but in their integration into strategy, their anticipation into action, and their management into sustained authority. The leader who internalizes this understands that human behavior is both predictable and malleable, that circumstance is both constraint and opportunity, and that power, when exercised with clarity, precision, and foresight, shapes reality into reflection of will rather than surrender to chance. The world is a chessboard, each human a piece with latent intention, constrained movement, and potential for disruption. To perceive the board without understanding the rules of movement is to invite defeat. To anticipate the unseen strategies of others is to command inevitability. Every action reverberates beyond immediate effect. Every omission shapes perception, alters expectation, and redirects ambition. The leader who ignores this subtle web is bound by forces he cannot name. The one who comprehends it transforms chaos into instrument, unpredictability into leverage, and the ambitions of many into alignment with singular authority. Observation is the crucible of mastery. To see clearly is not enough. One must interpret, anticipate, and exploit. Human behavior follows patterns born of desire, fear, and the pursuit of advantage. Every conversation conceals motive. Every alliance masks self-interest. Every gesture carries weight. The astute leader reads these signals as instruments, shaping strategy not through force alone, but through anticipation, suggestion, and the calculated orchestration of consequence. Understanding is not passive. It is a weapon, silent, invisible, yet decisive. Fear and respect are tools forged from perception. One commands obedience not solely through punishment, but through calibrated expectation, where the cost of deviation exceeds the perceived gain. Subtlety matters more than spectacle. Consistency outweighs rhetoric. Men act less upon instruction than upon anticipated outcome, less upon principle than upon self-interest. To govern effectively is to manipulate these currents with precision, creating an environment where compliance is both rational and inevitable, where authority is experienced as natural law rather than enforced edict. Betrayal is neither rare nor extraordinary. It is natural, inevitable, and, when anticipated, utilizable. Each act of subversion reveals hidden structure, exposes latent ambition, and illuminates the channels through which influence may be reinforced. The leader who prepares for treachery converts threat into advantage, transforming the energy of disloyalty into reinforcement of power. Punishment and reward are instruments of calibration, subtle yet precise, ensuring that alignment of interest persists even when desire diverges. Loyalty is conditional, fleeting, and measurable. It is never given freely, nor is it permanent. Authority is reinforced through observation, anticipation, and the management of consequence, not through appeals to virtue or sentiment. Those who rely on assumed loyalty are vulnerable. Those who measure it, manipulate it, and respond to its fluctuations transform it into a predictable instrument of strategy. Every reward, every sanction, every recognition is a lever, guiding ambition and aligning action with authority. Perception is reality. The human mind acts upon appearance more readily than truth. Every gesture, word, and silence contributes to a narrative, constructing legitimacy and reinforcing hierarchy. The leader who understands this wields influence through suggestion, orchestration, and the invisible hand of expectation. Control is less a function of force than of the careful alignment of perception with objective, creating a world where compliance appears natural, dissent appears irrational, and the authority of leadership is experienced as inevitability. Isolation is a crucible for insight. Surrounded by flattery, fear, and ambition, many lose clarity. Solitude provides perspective. In detachment, the leader observes without distortion, calculates without bias, and acts with decisive precision. Confidants are instruments, advisors are variables, and alliances are contingent. To walk alone is not weakness, it is mastery. Insight gained in solitude allows the leader to anticipate the movements of others, to orchestrate circumstance, and to assert authority with inevitability rather than compulsion. Opportunity is ephemeral and fleeting, often imperceptible until seized. Hesitation is fatal, miscalculation is catastrophic. The leader who perceives opportunity before it manifests converts potential into permanence, uncertainty into control. Timing, sequencing, and alignment of action with human instinct determine the difference between ascendancy and subjugation. Every circumstance carries the seed of advantage or ruin. Discernment and execution transform the seed into reality. The leader who masters this is unbound by circumstance, commanding outcomes before they crystallize. Control is architecture. It is composed of anticipation, manipulation, and the strategic application of consequence. Every interaction functions as a lever. Every silence carries weight. Every omission shapes outcome. Mastery is the ability to orchestrate these levers with precision, converting volatility into predictability, desire into alignment, and chaos into instrument. Those who fail to perceive this remain at the mercy of circumstance. Those who comprehend it direct currents invisibly, asserting authority while appearing passive. Power is neither ethical nor sentimental. It is functional. Principles serve strategy. Virtue is a tool. Morality is leverage. Outcomes define consequence. Intentions are irrelevant. To act without comprehension of this is to surrender agency. To wield it with clarity is to navigate the currents of influence with inevitability. Authority is sustained not through appeal to sentiment, but through mastery of consequence, anticipation of behavior, and orchestration of circumstance that renders compliance both rational and unavoidable. Human ambition is a network of vectors, intersecting and diverging with subtle complexity. Each subordinate, peer, and rival operates from self-interest, fear, and desire. The effective leader observes, predicts, and guides these currents, ensuring that actions align with strategic objectives. Influence is not imposed, but cultivated. It is maintained through observation, intervention, and the careful calibration of reward, recognition, and consequence. Mastery lies in transforming the latent energies of ambition into instruments of authority. Deception is not merely a tactic, it is the medium through which power endures. Truth, rigid and overt, invites exploitation, suggestion, concealment, and controlled revelation, manipulate expectation, and guide action. The leader who understands this balances disclosure and ambiguity, shaping reality through perception rather than coercion. Influence is exercised in silence, in nuance, in the subtle orchestration of understanding that guides behavior without visible compulsion. Reality bends beneath perception. Perception is shaped by those who act decisively, invisibly, and with unerring calculation. The architecture of loyalty, fear, perception, and ambition forms a lattice through which authority flows. To master it is to convert volatility into structure, uncertainty into inevitability, and human desire into instruments of influence. Every gesture, conversation, and decision contributes to this lattice. Every omission and silence reinforces it. The leader who internalizes these truths commands not by brute force, but by comprehension, shaping circumstance and behavior with precision, guiding outcomes in alignment with intent, and transforming the unpredictable landscape of human ambition into a theater of controlled inevitability. And so, the truth reveals itself with relentless clarity. Most who claim leadership are not masters, but instruments, strings pulled by unseen hands, dancing to currents they neither perceive nor command. They speak of vision while obeying the subtle forces of expectation, habit, and fear. Their authority is borrowed, fragile, and contingent, a castle built on sand where every tide threatens collapse. To dwell in this illusion is to live shackled, perpetually reacting rather than commanding, a spectator in one's own existence. Breaking free is neither dramatic nor violent. It is deliberate. It begins with observation, seeing the currents that shape your world, the ambitions that mask themselves as loyalty, the manipulations that pass unnoticed under the guise of routine. It requires solitude, for insight cannot survive the clamor of applause or fear. It demands courage, the unwavering willingness to act when every instinct urges compromise, to move when hesitation is safe. To break free is to reclaim the agency ceded to circumstance, expectation, and deception, and to step into the arena of reality fully armed with comprehension rather than hope. Power, once understood, ceases to be abstract. It becomes a language, a structure, a set of instruments to be mastered. Authority is not granted. It is constructed, maintained, and defended through precision, foresight, and the relentless calibration of perception and consequence. Every interaction becomes data, every gesture a lever, every decision an act of design. The liberated leader moves with inevitability, bending circumstance without subjugation, guiding ambition without coercion, and commanding reality without apology. And yet, freedom carries its own burden. To wield agency is to bear the responsibility of outcome, to navigate betrayal without illusion, to exercise foresight without arrogance. The path is solitary, demanding vigilance, patience, and clarity. But the alternative is to remain a puppet, dancing to the whims of others, surrendering instinct, desire, and intellect to the machinations of unseen architects. To choose mastery is to embrace the inevitability of consequence, the unflinching logic of human behavior, and the raw, unadorned architecture of power itself. Thus, the final truth stands stark and uncompromising. To lead, to act, to exist as more than a marionette, one must see clearly, judge decisively, and act with deliberate inevitability. Authority, perception, loyalty, fear, and ambition are not abstractions, they are instruments, tools in the hand of the one willing to confront reality without illusion. To break free is to recognize the architecture of control, to internalize its mechanics, and to step into mastery, where one's will is no longer borrowed, but sovereign. Only then does the dance end, not with applause, but with quiet command, the serene, remorseless exercise of agency in a world that offers none freely. This is the path. Observe, discern, act, and master. And in mastery, the strings fall away, leaving only the unshakable presence of a will that no longer trembles, no longer bends, no longer dances to another's design, but moves through the world as both architect and inevitability.